Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to another little fun commentary video on some college football history, looking back at some of the just worst bowl games in the new Year 6 playoff era. So this is like 2014, and we're actually going to be starting with last year and kind of working our way back, just looking back on some of the worst, most either boring, lopsided, blowout type things just for fun. I do really enjoy doing these type of videos. So this game actually was last year, Minnesota versus West Virginia. That was a bad West Virginia team, man. Tanner Morgan. What do we make of Tanner Morgan? Tanner Morgan broke out his sophomore year, and I think he's regressed every year since his sophomore year, to the point where I think he's injured right now, but he might have had 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions this year. He's just not good anymore. This game was just horrible. It was the guaranteed rate bowl. Minnesota ended up going to 9-4. You know what? This could be a very similar situation for Minnesota this year versus Syracuse, a really bad Syracuse team in the Pinstripe Bowl, but West Virginia coming into that game at 6-6 and finishing the dreaded 6-7. Just a horrible game overall there. Just 2 terrible quarterback performances. And then we do have one of the playoff games. It always seems to happen. This was the Orange Bowl, Georgia and Michigan. And yeah, it was a beatdown. Georgia just so much more talented last year than Michigan. They were up 34-3, and then Michigan scored a late touchdown and a 2-point conversion. It is funny that J.J. McCarthy finished with the most passing yards for Michigan over McNamara. Obviously, McNamara started. Hassan Haskins, remember he had the like 5 touchdown game or 4 touchdown game against Ohio State. How about Eric All? Guys, Eric All, I think it was announced today, just transferred to Iowa. So good for them. And then James Cook, the running back, who's now with the Buffalo Bills, had 4 catches for 112 yards. Zamir White, who I think was like a 6th or 7th round pick for the Vegas Raiders, he's in the NFL as well. Hassan Haskins is in the NFL. Stenson Bennett, he was quote unquote a Heisman finalist. As funny as that is, but no, he had a really good game. Georgia just had so much more talent than Michigan. It was really not even close. I mean, Jim Harbaugh could have come up with the perfect game plan and they would have lost. It was just a mismatch. This next game, this was also last year, so we were still dealing with pandemic stuff last year, and Rutgers ended up filling in for, I forget which team they filled in for, but someone, and Wake Forest was 17-point favorites. Rutgers, a fill-in, playing in the Gator Bowl at 5-7. They obviously did not deserve it, and they got annihilated 38-10. Sam Hartman, an impressive game. A.T. Perry, very, very solid, underrated receiver. And, of course, Rutgers getting into that bowl game because of the pandemic situation there. The Sugar Bowl, man, have we had some bad Sugar Bowls. The problem with the Sugar Bowl, I think, is the timing. It's on at like 8:30 at night. I think they changed it this year. Now it's on at noon. Yeah, because Alabama and Kansas State, I think they play at noon or 1. But it was on at 8:30 every night the past like 5 years. And both of these quarterbacks, this was the game Matt Corral had that crazy injury, and they had to bring in the backup there. So, I mean, look at Baylor's quarterback. 7 of 17, 40 yards, 40 passing yards. My goodness. Their leading receiver had 2 catches for 14 yards. They were able to score 21 points and win, but 21-7 is just not the type of game you're looking for in a New Year's 6 bowl. This was in 2020. You can tell it was in 2020 because Colorado is 4-2 playing in the Alamo Bowl. How about Texas playing in the Alamo Bowl now, like 2 times in 3 years? Casey Thompson, 8 of 10 for 170 yards and 4 touchdowns. Bijan Robinson, whatever happened to Joshua Moore? He was supposed to be a really good receiver. He just kind of fell off or something. And then Colorado's quarterback, 8 of 23 for 101 yards, 2 interceptions. They randomly started 4-0 that year and then ended up finishing 4-2. The Pac-12 barely even playing that season with that total fiasco. I think the Big Ten played like 8 games. The Pac-12 played maybe 6 games or something total. And Colorado gets, there were like cancellations. It was just a terrible season overall. Really, really sad. This, oh my goodness, the Cotton Bowl. So Kyle Trask's teammates abandon him in probably the last meaningful game of his entire football career. I don't want to make it sound that bad because he is in the NFL right now. I think he's backing up Tom Brady. But wow, very rarely do you see this. An entire team, except the starting quarterback who was in the Heisman race, doesn't play. And Kyle Trask, 3 interceptions, 150 yards. This was the game where we were like, Spencer Rattler, he's next in line for Lincoln Riley. Oklahoma's going to be a top 3 or 4 team next year. He's guaranteed to win the Heisman. And then, of course, Spencer Rattler had the crazy bad year. Lincoln Riley leaves USC. 14 of 23, 247, 3 touchdowns. Really good game for him. And a total blowout. This is the type of stuff we're trying to avoid when it comes to these so-called meaningful bowl games, and you've got players sitting out, and it creates this. And, of course, you've got to mention Emory Jones, the current Arizona State quarterback, led the team in rushing, 10 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown, just kind of as a dual threat. This was the semifinal game during the 2020 pandemic year. Mac Jones was just crazy. Devontae Smith he won the Heisman as a receiver. And Alabama, in just a total boring, just slop, beats Notre Dame. And guys, I did not remember this. Alabama was 19.5-point favorites in this game. That is just not good for college football. A playoff game. The second or third biggest game of the entire college football season to play for the national title. And one team on a neutral field is 20-point favorites. Either Notre Dame, just shouldn't have been in. Or like Notre Dame at 10-1. I don't know, man. I don't know how this happens. Maybe Alabama was just that good because Alabama annihilated Ohio State too. But that is a crazy spread for a semifinal game. The New Mexico Bowl. So this is just your standard MAC team getting destroyed. That's just exactly what happened. Their quarterback, 11 of 26, 164, and 3 interceptions. Yeah, that happens a lot. You see these MAC teams. Central Michigan had played 14 games that season, so they were in the MAC. I wonder if they won the MAC that year. I don't know, but they got destroyed in the bowl, 48-11. Oh my goodness. Louisiana Tech versus Miami is on here a few times. They play in these crap bowl games and they don't show up. They got shut out by Louisiana Tech 14-0. But how about KJ Osborne? Guys, I didn't even know KJ Osborne, like the Vikings number 3 receiver. He was on Miami. I didn't even know that. He had 5 catches for 56 yards, but just a really horrible game overall, 14-0. Boring game there. The Military Bowl. So for some reason that year, I remember with Sam Howell, Javonte Williams, North Carolina might have kept losing close games, so they got into a crappy bowl against a bad team, and this is the result. 55-13, a total annihilation there. The Peach Bowl, I didn't even remember this was the Peach Bowl. This was the game where LSU, I think, scored 49 points in the first half. It was either 42 or 49 points. I don't even recognize that running back. LSU was up by so many points. The backup running back, Curry, had 16 carries. Justin Jefferson, 14 catches, 227. Joe Burrow, 500 yards and 7 passing touchdowns. It's just, it's even crazier than playing, Madden on rookie. Joe Burrow that year in 2019, that's like the greatest quarterback. That's the greatest college single season quarterback performance I've ever seen. Joe Burrow's 2019 season. And then for the NFL, it was Peyton Manning in 2013. That's just my opinion. And then here's the box score. Yeah, LSU scores 49 points in the first half in a playoff game. Come on. I totally forgot that was the Peach Bowl. Where was that game played? Was that game the last game of the... Or maybe it was because... I don't know where that game was played. Because I normally think the Peach Bowl is in that new Falcons Stadium. But I don't think that's where that was. Maybe it was the last game of the Georgia Dome or something. This one, just a standard crappy bowl game blowout. Cincinnati should not have been facing Boston College. Obviously, Boston College came into this game at 6-6. Cincinnati was 10-3. How about Desmond Ridder's performance? 14 of 24 for 95 yards. He threw 24 passes for less than 100 yards. It's just horrible efficiency. And then even his 21 carries for 105 yards, 3 touchdowns, but really wasn't efficient. Either way, Boston College, this is a typical game where you've got to match these teams up sometimes. It's unfortunate, and it ends in a blowout. And this game was just totally lopsided. 33 first downs to 8. I'm guessing Cincinnati had no explosive plays. That's why Desmond Ridder really didn't have that good of stats, but they had a ton of first downs. This game was a bore fest. So this was the Cotton Bowl. It was the 2v3 game, Notre Dame's other playoff appearance, and it's just not competitive at all. That's really all I can say on it. Justin Ross, I remember when everyone thought he was going to be a beast. He had, a phenomenal game, 6 for 148, 2 touchdowns. Notre Dame it's not even close. It's not fun to watch. And I'm not trying to pick on Notre Dame, but my goodness. The Frisco Bowl, how about there was a MAC team blowing out San Diego State, giving it back to them 27-0. So a nice little win there. Just kind of a fun blowout in that one. The Cheez-It Bowl, so this is probably the worst quarterback performance I've seen combined. You've got both of these quarterbacks combining for no touchdowns and 7 interceptions. And it ends in overtime like a mercy. They probably just gave TCU a field goal. They didn't want to see these the dude is 7 of 20 for 27 yards and 4 interceptions. At what point do you think maybe like a receiver might be a better option at quarterback? Like a speedy receiver and just have him run the ball the entire time? No, that legitimately would have been the better option, but he won. They won the game, so congratulations. The running back, 32 carries for 194. Just a horrible game there. This is what happens when you send Miami into a meaningless bowl in 20-degree weather. Malik Rozier, 5 of 12 for 46 yards and 3 interceptions. He did have 3 carries for 90 yards somehow, but they lost 35-3. Jonathan Taylor's college. Go look up Jonathan Taylor's college stats. Every year, I think he had like 1,800 rushing yards, Jonathan Taylor. His true freshman year, his sophomore year, and his junior year. And, of course, he doesn't win the Heisman, because Wisconsin wasn't good enough. But overall, Jack Cohn was actually good on Notre Dame, as shocking as that is, because he is kind of a statue. Next, we've got Virginia beating South Carolina in the Belk Bowl. I really wish it was still named the Belk Bowl. I don't know what they renamed it, but how about the receiver for Virginia? That dude's on the Falcons right now, or he was at least. I don't know if he's on there anymore. Bryce Perkins. Bryce Perkins started a game for the LA Rams earlier this year. Maybe 2 games. There's a fun fact. But South Carolina gets shut out in that one. Doesn't do anything. The Redbox Bowl. I miss these names. I really do. Justin Herbert and Brian Lewerke. Who's that? LJ Scott. Cody White. Yes, I remember these guys. Just a terrible, terrible game. 7-6. Oregon ends up winning it. Oregon did go 9-4 that year, but it's crazy how Justin Herbert... is that an indictment on Mario Cristobal overall there? How is Justin Herbert only scoring 7 points in a college bowl game when he's a junior? It just makes no sense. Of course, this is one of the classics. 31-0. JT Barrett, 33 pass attempts for 127 yards. Curtis Samuel, 9 catches for only 43 yards. It was so sad. And a lot of people don't remember, but Ohio State started this game off intercepting Deshaun Watson. Garyon Conley picked him off, and it just all downhill from there. They missed 2 field goals. It was terrible. I remember Malik Hooker had a pick 6 that one of the Ohio State defensive linemen knocked down. He was literally going to pick it off and walk 20 yards into the end zone. That was the one year Malik Hooker broke out and Malik Hooker only had 1 good year. Or he only played 1 year, and it was that year, and then he was like a top 15 pick. But this was an annihilation. It was boring, and it was the Fiesta Bowl in the desert. Just a terrible game there. The Outback Bowl, This is your typical SEC beatdown of a Big Ten team. Let's just call it what it is. That's exactly what this is. CJ Beathard, he actually is kind of a serviceable quarterback in the NFL, but holy crap. 7 of 23, 55 yards, 3 interceptions. That is an epically bad quarterback performance. I don't even know who's Florida's quarterback was at that point, but they end up winning that game 30-3 in the former Outback Bowl. They've changed that name as well. Here's another MAC beatdown. Boise State annihilating Northern Illinois 55-7. And I think that's Jeremy McNichols, who was a backup running back for Derrick Henry. I don't know if he's still in the NFL, but shout out to him. This game, this was like the first New Year's Six game ever. It was the Peach Bowl, and we remember when TCU, they were ranked third, they get knocked down to 6th, and then they win this game, and then everyone was like, they should have been in. But then Ohio State ends up winning the national title. I don't remember Boykin throwing 3 interceptions in this game. I just remember it being a total domination by TCU. I mean, look at Bo Wallace's stats. 109 yards on 23 pass attempts and 3 interceptions. But those were just some of the bigger blowouts here and kind of just bad games for the college football bowl season as it does begin, I think, on Friday. So, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.